Hello, today is June 24th, and we're going to be concentrating on Acts 16. But something that we kind of skipped over yesterday a bit was the Jerusalem Council that happened in Acts chapter 15. And there are a lot of very significant decisions were made as Paul was back in Jerusalem and had an opportunity to recount the things that he had seen and done on his first missionary journey and how many Gentiles were coming to the faith. And a decision needed to be reached whether the Gentiles had to be circumcised and otherwise conform to the Mosaic covenant in order to be part of the Christian body of believers. And there was a good decision that was reached there, and very few qualifications were listed for what you need to do in order to be a Christian. And so now Paul is going to travel back to some of those places that he visited in the first journey to tell them about the news of what have happened at that council and to give them instructions from that. And so we see him going back to Lystra and Derbe, and he's going to go to Philippi for the first time as well. And there's a lot of interesting tidbits in Acts chapter 16 just in the beginning of it, very short little phrases, but significant things that are happening there. Verse 5, for instance, says, "So the churches were strengthened in the faith and grew daily in numbers." So there are already some established churches, and now they're growing in depth as well as in number, and that's a good news for us. But then it says that Paul and his companions traveled throughout the region of Phrygia and Galatia, having been kept by the Holy Spirit from preaching the word in the province of Asia. And so there's a large region here, Phrygia and Galatia, but they have been also trying to go into the province of Asia, but for some mysterious reason not allowed to go in there, or not having success in preaching the word there by the Holy Spirit. And so they come to the border of Mysia and try to enter Bithynia, but the Spirit of Jesus would not allow them to. Maybe that region was just not yet ready for the word to come to it. Maybe there was something else that needed to happen in the interim so that Paul and Barnabas could come back there later, or maybe it was reserved for one of the other apostles or disciples to go into that place. And so they were redirected. We don't know why, but it says they passed by Mysia and went down to Troas. During the night, Paul had a vision of a man of Macedonia standing and begging him, "Come over to Macedonia and help us." So interesting little vision here. I don't think these are all that common. I think it's interesting when we read through Acts, we get some of the most interesting and unusual things are recorded here, but it doesn't mean that that kind of thing was happening all the time, just maybe a very unusual occurrence here. But after Paul had seen the vision, we got ready, and there you see Luke involved in the action. We got ready at once to leave for Macedonia, concluding that God had called us to preach the gospel to them. So they go from Troas to Samothrace and then to Neapolis, and from there they travel to Philippi. Don't know how long that took. I don't think it was probably an easy journey, but Paul is willing to do what he needs to in order to reach those people. And this is where it gets, I think, wonderful. In verse 13, it's going to concentrate on what happened at Philippi. It says, "On the Sabbath, we went outside the city gate to the river where we expected to find a place of prayer." It seems that from the culture there, when there wasn't a synagogue in town, maybe there weren't enough Jewish men to compose a synagogue in Philippi, that there was just this expectation that they might find a place of prayer down by the river. They'd find people gathering who were looking to be with other believers, in a sense. And this is where they meet Lydia, and she invites them over to her house at the end. It says, "When she and the members of her household were baptized, she invited us to her home. 'If you consider me a believer in the Lord,' she said, 'come and stay at my house.' And she persuaded us." And so, again, we don't know a lot about Lydia, but we do get a sense of who she is and her character just by the fact that she is humble, but she also invites them to stay in her house, and she's eager to be a part of that blooming church there in Philippi. So, pretty exciting start to that church there in Philippi.